2021 is the year of increased military escalation and imprisoned peace in Yemen. The current military escalation in Ma'rib deepens suffering of displaced people. Joint forces take up fierce clashes with rebel militia in Shabwa's battlefronts. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swalam. The Yemeni crisis is the same as it has been during the past 6 years. There is still no end in sight. The past year brought increased military escalation to Yemen, with its consequent toll on a disastrous humanitarian situation. Like other irregular wars, the one in Yemen will not produce a winner or a loser, especially with the peacemaking efforts continue to flounder. More details on this story are within this report.
While Yemen's hope ebbed for 2021 following a remarkable international progress to bring peace, the year ends with an unyielding escalation of Houthis with recording highest death toll to date on the fronts of Ma'rib. Ma'rib was the headline of 2021 with displacement of about 130,000 civilians in the wake of the escalation. The offensive on Ma'rib coincided with failure of United Nations efforts to reach a ceasefire, collapse of Stockholm Agreement in Hodeidah, and re-emergence of the spectre of famine that haunts more than 5 million people. Earlier this year, Houthis targeted oil-rich Ma'rib through the Western Gate, amid previous UN envoy Griffith's proposal of a new ceasefire plan, starting with its core, Sarwah. Government forces backed by coalition fought fierce battles, especially on Al-Majah and Al-Qassara fronts. Said fronts witnessed the fall of about 20,000 members of the militia, which 9 months after the attack failed to infiltrate the city of Ma'rib. As the new UN envoy Hans Grunberg assumed his duties and the US envoy Tim Lunderking resumed his efforts to finalize the agreement on the UN plan for a comprehensive ceasefire, Houthi militia made a decision after issuing a number of conditions to accept the UN plan as they opened new fronts to fight across the south of Ma'rib, escalating its violations in the city of Hodeidah and districts to the south. Contrary to what political factions expected, the new UN envoy only condemned what Houthi militia had done and rejected the peace plan packed by Saudi Arabia, and by launching an initiative similar to that plan which was also rejected by Houthis. Recently, Grunberg stated that he is seeking to hold a new round of talks at the beginning of next year without the need to agree on a ceasefire. Yet he did not give reasons for the success of these efforts, which came 5 years after the Kuwait talks. Kuwait talks were on the cusp of concluding a comprehensive agreement to end the war before Houthi militia refused to sign it at the end of those talks. With the end of the year, World Food Programme has warned that if the funding is not mobilized soon, resources needed to provide food assistance to 13 million beneficiaries in Yemen will run out. 8 million people will receive reduced food rations of January 2022. Further cuts will be inevitable. The reduction comes at a time of rapidly increasing food insecurity. According to the UN organizations, the main drivers of food insecurity are at worse levels than 2018 crisis. Currency depreciation accelerated this year, accompanied by a rise in food prices, which nearly tripled. Over the year, there were some small steps forward on Yemen. However, diplomatic efforts have failed so far to produce a significant breakthrough. Engaging Houthis remains a major obstacle. In 2022, there will likely be sustained efforts by the international community to end the conflict, but there remains no quick fix for the war in Yemen.
In Washington, the U.S. State Department reiterated its commitment to take approach much more effective than potentially threatening the welfare and well-being of millions of Yemenis. The spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, Ned Price, said Washington's goal is to increase humanitarian aid, not to add to the humanitarian suffering of Yemenis. In Al-Jawf, the International Organization for Migration said that more than 4,000 civilians fled within a week due to Houthi escalation. According to the UN Migration Agency, 628 families were displaced from Barat al-Anan district, 7 from Khub wal-Shaf districts, and 5 households from Rajuza district. To that end, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said that it had signed an agreement with the non-governmental Qatar Charity Foundation with an estimated value of more than 1.8 million Qatari riyals as a contribution to help the internally displaced people in Ma'rib. Under this agreement, UNHCR will provide urgent assistance to more than 2,000 internally displaced families. Latest reports have revealed that there are more than 4 million internally displaced people in Yemen, and about 40,000 people have been forced to flee inside Ma'rib since September of this year. Ma'rib is also currently hosting half of the number of displaced people in 2021, estimated at 120,000 people scattered throughout the country. Houthi military escalation in Ma'rib has caused a grave humanitarian situation, especially with regards to displacement. With the city hosting the biggest number of internally displaced people, this has made hundreds of families leave their camps and move to other safer places. The following report has more on this.
The escalation of the Houthi militia in Ma'rib led to the creation of the largest displacement crisis in Yemen in a decade, according to what was confirmed by a government unit concerned with managing displacement camps. The executive unit for the management of IDPs camps confirmed that the impact of the ongoing military escalation of the Houthi militia on the southern districts of Ma'rib has caused the displacement of more than 96,328 displaced people. The executive unit described this as one of the largest waves of displacement in Yemen during the last decade, as the government is going through a critical and exceptional stage and an overlapping crisis, whose burden is multiplying day after day. In less than a week, about 7,000 Yemenis were displaced due to the escalation of hostilities in several governorates of Ma'rib, El Jawf, and the West Coast. The weekly report confirmed that between December 19 and 25, the IOM displacement matrix tracked 1,164 families, representing 6,984 individuals who were displaced at least once. According to the organization, the largest displacement rates were recorded respectively in the governorates of El Jawf, 640 families, Ma'rib, 362 families, Taiz, 87 families, and El Hodeidah, 83 families. The number of displaced people has increased since the beginning of this year to 25,591 families, representing 153,546 individuals, in addition to 4,440 families displaced for the second or third time, according to data from the United Nations Organization for Migration. Displaced people keep suffering as long as the war continues.
In Shabwa, fierce battles erupted between government forces and Houthi rebels in Al Safra front of Bayhan district. The new governor, Awad bin al-Wazir, said that everyone should work with the spirit of one party. For its part, the coalition launched raids on two different sites under the control of the Houthi militia in Marha district. The airstrikes of the coalition coincided with the deployment of the forces of the Giant Brigades in Shabwa in preparation for the liberation of Bayhan, Usaylan, and various areas controlled by the Houthi militia. Today, Houthis launched a missile at a camp housing the joint forces, who have reached Shabwa to liberate it from Houthi control. According to military sources, the ballistic missile attack killed 4 soldiers and wounded another 13 at the camp in Marha. On Wednesday, the Joint Forces fighters previously stationed in western Yemen had arrived to Shabwa to liberate Bayhan and Usaylan from Houthis. For his part, Brigadier General Tariq Saleh, commander of the Republican Guard forces, confirmed that Shabwa is impending with liberation. In a speech in front of units of the Republican Guard on the western coast, Tariq Saleh said that the missiles which come to Yemen from Iran are disassembled and installed by Iranian experts and released under their management. Tariq Saleh added that the repositioning of the joint forces in Hodeidah contributed to securing international navigation at Bab el-Mandab, stressing that they have a strong reserve to participate in any front of the fighting. Turning to Ma'rib, the government forces announced the death of tens of Houthi militants in battles in southern France. Sources indicated that fierce battles took place between government forces backed by tribes and Houthi rebels. Sources added that heavy losses were inflicted on the militia in terms of lives and equipment. To that end, the coalition carried out 22 operations against Houthi rebels. During the past 24 hours, it said that airstrikes destroyed 15 Houthi military vehicles and caused more than 150 casualties. The U.S. Central Command announced the deployment of F-18C fighters at a Saudi air base to enhance security and stability in the region. According to a statement, the fighters were recently deployed at Prince Sultan Air Base to support the mission of the U.S. Central Command. This comes at a time when the risk of Houthi attacks on Saudi facilities is increasing amid American assertion that it will defend it as a strategic ally in the Middle East. In the Arabian Sea, 2 U.S. Navy ships seized 385 kilograms of heroin valued at about $4 million during a major attack by an international naval operation in the region. The Navy said that the fishing vessel likely came from Iran. The 9 crew members identified themselves as Iranian citizens, according to a spokesman for the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in the Middle East. He added that the drug's final destination was unknown. In Hodeidah, Houthi militia targeted village of Hais with a missile. A mortar shell targeted the house of a citizen named Shuryan Thabit Saeed, located in the village of Dar al-Harbi. The targeting caused material damage to the house and created fear and panic among the people. Coming next. 2021 is the year of military escalation and imprisoned peace in Yemen.
اضطرينا نحن نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محولتني الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. UNESCO started restoring historical sites in Aden, Shibam, Sana'a and Zabid as part of the EU-funded Cash for Work project, with the aim of enhancing livelihood opportunities for urban youth in Yemen. UNESCO has trained 42 cultural professionals, including decision makers and local experts, on how to intervene during emergencies by forming a team and developing a strategic plan. Ahmed Haidara, a project officer at the Social Fund for Development, said that there are systematic ways to work in the protection of cultural heritage during disasters, and it's necessary that this work can be managed by specialists and with the support of other parties. Yemen enjoys a rich cultural heritage that dates back to the dawn of civilization. Yet this heritage has been a subject of destruction like anything else in the country. The following report looks at the impact of war on the cultural heritage in the country.
The poorest country in this region, Yemen, has a unique architectural legacy which is being damaged and destroyed by warfare, or left to fall into ruin by neglect. 3 of the 52 World Heritage Sites listed by the cultural organization UNESCO as in danger are in Yemen. Sana'a's Old City and its 7th century Great Mosque, regarded as the first to be built outside Mecca, and Medina, the walled city of Shibam and the historic town of Zabid. Historic buildings have been damaged by fighting and bombing in the Old City of Sana'a, which has been inhabited for more than 2,500 years and is ranked as one of the oldest cities in the world, along with Damascus and Aleppo. Sana'a's multicolored blocks, built before the 11th century, are constructed of rammed earth and decorated with white geometric designs. The city boasts 6,000 of these houses and 103 mosques. Among them is the Great Mosque, which is dated to the time of Prophet Muhammad and was a center for the propagation of Islam. Shibam is famed for its 500 magnificent mud brick high-rise buildings which, although the city has been settled for 1,700 years, were constructed in the 16th century. These apartment blocks require constant maintenance to protect their walls from being eroded by wind and rain. Zabid's buildings, some 2 or 3 stories high, are mainly plain burnt brick structures, although some have delicately carved brick and stucco decoration. It is a city famous for its 86 mosques and its Grand Mosque, which, built by a companion of the Prophet, was the 5th in Islam. While the 3 cities are listed as threatened by UNESCO, the whole country is a cultural heritage site which must be defended and preserved.
In economy, Governor of the Central Bank, Ahmed Ghalib, discussed plans to improve banking sector and achieve stability with representatives of the Association of Money Changers and the founders of the Unified Money Network Company. Ghalib told the bankers to activate the work of the Unified Remittance Network and link it to the central bank due to its importance in the governance of work and the application of anti-money laundering and terrorist financing systems. For their part, they affirmed their readiness to cooperate in supporting the bank and the government procedures in a manner that achieves stability and serves the public interest. The Yemeni government announced the arrival of the 6th batch of oil grant provided by Saudi Arabia to the oil port. The fuel ship carrying 60,000 metric tons of diesel has entered the port berth. The government indicated that the fuel will then be distributed according to the approved procedures for power stations in Aden Governorate. The World Bank has been contributing to major projects in Yemen even before the war. During war, different projects have been conducted in terms of restoring the infrastructure of state institutions, mainly in health and educational sectors. The following report has more on this.
The conflict in Yemen, which started in March 2015, has affected the capacity of local institutions to enforce laws, including laws related to environmental protection and management. The private sector was also hit. Environmental consulting firms, individual consultants and universities providing resources and capacity for Yemen to safeguard project operations have all been affected. Despite the conflict, the World Bank has continued to support Yemen and managed to maintain environmental standards for the projects it finances in the country. World Bank teams and UN agencies have been working together through two local agencies, the Social Fund for Development and Public Works Project, since 2016. These agencies have started to build their institutional capacity to improve their own environmental and social measures, including those on occupational health and safety. It also works to restore community assets that provide socio-economic benefits, to sustain and scale up the business operations of financial service providers and micro, small and medium enterprises, and to ensure the oversight, reporting and quality of projects. Preserving these sectors and strengthening them prepares Yemen for the recovery and reconstruction that will one day take place after conflict, and makes sure that the development projects and intervention that the bank supports both today and in the future are sustainable and environment friendly.
Turning to health, the United Nations Children's Fund announced the arrival of more than 12 million polio vaccines to Aden. The organization said that more than 12.4 million doses of vaccines against polio arrived in Yemen. According to the organization, these vaccines will provide protection for more than 10 million children under the age of 10 from polio. Amid warnings from the outbreak of the fourth wave of COVID-19, the National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded one new case of the pandemic in Shabwa. Also, committee officials said 5 recovered cases were recorded and no death. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,126, including 1,984 deaths and 7,020 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. 2021 is the year of increased military escalation and imprisoned peace in Yemen. The current military escalation in Ma'rib deepens suffering of displaced people. Giant forces take up fierce clashes with rebel militia in Shabwa's battlefronts. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.